am CJ Oddo. I was a nihilistic atheist for 30 years. Every Christian that I thought about was, frankly, a lunatic. I grew up in a somewhat religious household. My father would mention Jesus here and there. He used to look at me and he used to say, "Christopher, Jesus is the one." I never really knew what that meant. I was probably too young, but I never really thought about it. But it made me happy because it made him happy. I reached the age of about 10 or 11 years old, and my two older brothers, John and Mikey, developed pretty debilitating mental illness. This pretty much put a fork in our household. It was pretty devastating for us. You hear your mother crying every day for your older brothers, and during these short years, I remember coming to God for the first time as a 11-year-old, and you're praying for your family to get better, to heal. I'm praying, God, please restore my family. I didn't even know what God was, but I tried to come to him for the first time, and I waited a few years for the family life to get better. It just got worse. So at the age of 14, I pretty much just gave up all sense of hope. My brothers were not clearly going to get better, and the more I heard my father talk about Jesus, the more it angered me. I dropped out of school. And I convinced a psychologist that I was mentally insane so that I could walk the same path as my brothers. Because if God was gonna allow me to live a life of freedom while they, sat in this prolonged state of suffering, then I would kind of just join them. So I was locked in my bedroom for literally the years of 14 to 19. I didn't leave my room one time. I gained 100 pounds. I didn't get any sunlight, and I was just a hermit. I was sleeping for about 18 to 20 hours a day. It was just because I was miserable. There was no hope of a better future. And in those dark thoughts, I almost prayed that God would concede my own life. If there was a God at this point, at least take my life and heal my family, something. I tried so hard, but I wouldn't get granted that. I looked at atheism and the concept of the universe expanding through 13.8 billion years ago for seemingly no reason. There is no God and everything just happens out of coincidence. That made more sense to me because there just cannot be so much vile things happening in the world with a God that is all good. I wanted people to feel how I felt for so many years, that there was no hope. When you try and come to the same God that everyone else is praising for college degrees or something stupid that I thought was something stupid, you want to see the same despair in other people, that there is nothing. You want to strip the happiness and hope away from people by any means. You want them to feel how you felt and go through the same despair and non-answered prayers that you got. I got to the age of 19, 20, and I started to look at worldly things that might make me happy, because I wanted to be happy so bad. The restoration of my family would not happen as much as I tried and begged and pleaded. So I looked to worldly things. Maybe this was getting a higher education, getting a certain salary. None of these things I tried for years did anything to give me hope or happiness or purpose. I read all these philosophy books and all these books on happiness to try and do something. I was gratitude journaling for years. I tried everything besides coming back to God. I started coming to CCC with my sister to humor her. I love my sister, Stephanie, and she wanted to go to a new church with her friend, and she didn't want to go alone. So I wanted to make her happy, so I came to this church, and everybody's going like this, and Pastor Dave is shoving a bucket in my face, and I'm drinking and eating crackers. It was ridiculous to me, but I wanted to make my sister happy. I talked to many people at the church while I was an atheist, to gauge whether they've had perfect lives. That was I didn't say it, but that was my goal. And a lot of people don't, they have faith through this suffering. A lot of people, their child passed away, or their child hasn't talked to them in 20 years, or they have cancer, their kid is battling cancer. And the more and more I talk to people at this church, it's like everybody is going through some level of suffering, and yet they still have this beautiful hope and faith in something greater. And I don't know, that like hope and faith slowly churned my heart a little bit. It made me almost think, it felt like I had been holding hands with the devil for like 20 years. And I don't know, it was scary to let go, I think. I would say that I came to the conclusion that, of course, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't understand God's will. So yeah, I started coming to CCC here and there. I could feel the hope in the room, but I didn't subscribe to anything quite yet. Over the course of months, something happened. I think a Bible was mailed to my house. It had my name on it. It was my first name, and it was supposed to go to someone down the street. And I think nothing of it. We kind of chuckle at it. After that, I got in this wild car accident on 75 where I was completely obliterated. My car was, anyway, and I came out unscathed, and I felt hope that where previously I would have been disappointed that nothing happened to me. When you're praying that something bad happens to you for so many years because you have this survivor's guilt from escaping what your family got, my brothers. But for the first time, I didn't feel that. I came out unscathed out of this horrible car accident because I don't know, I felt that there was something like I had yet to do, and this was before I had accepted Jesus Christ as my savior. I came to church one day, and Jen Newton, she took me by the back. She held my back, she looked me in the eyes, and she did a prayer for me, and she finished with, CJ, the Lord is after your heart. And in that, I don't know, in that moment, there was this like unprecedented, it was another feeling of hope. And it was like, man, I had been trying to push this away for so long. And I don't know, in that moment I said, I'm going to put my faith in God. I don't know a lot yet. I don't know why there's so much suffering. I don't have any of the answers I want, but I'm going to take somewhat of a step forward and put my faith in a God that would die for me. So, since then as soon as I got this cross, it was official. It's because I said I'm not going to brand myself with a logo without being serious about it. So as soon as I got this cross, it became real, and I accepted my faith. The idea of spreading, hope in something greater wasn't a concept that I particularly subscribed to. But I'm putting my faith, and I think everyone can put their faith in a God who would suffer with us, cry with us, and die for us, and that there's hope in something greater. I got a letter from a card someone wrote to me at CCC, and he's wrote to my sister and I, and it just says, Steph and CJ, thank you for your friendship. This beautiful card was like a representation, I think, of hope. This card meant more to me than any education or job title or salary that I've gotten recently. This card hit something different. It was hope. I don't know. And that is what I want to align my life with. We have a God who brought himself down to his own creation's level to cry for them, to show grace unto them, and to suffer like them. And yet he still decided to pray for the people that were killing him. I mean, most people can't even pray for the guy cutting them off in traffic, so this was someone who was praying for the very people that would spit on him, beat him, mutilate him, and crucify him. and that is very powerful. If people do think it's all fake, at the very least, you can feel the palpable sense of hope in the room. That is what I felt day one when I walked in. It was overwhelming, and everyone is going through something, and a lot of the times at service, people don't talk like that, but I think that level of vulnerability and faith despite is how we as Christians connect. The book of Job was the first book I read because I wanted to read an instance where someone went through suffering and had faith despite it, because that's how I felt. I frankly did not want to hear from people who went to Ivy League schools at age 18 and all their family comes to church. That was the connotation with Christians, that their life was basically perfect, and I could not relate to that in any way, shape, or form at the time. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but at first I needed something relatable. I needed to hear from someone who had faith despite, and I think that was in the beginning. It was part of the hope that I could sense. I would say that there is hope, and we're putting our hope in Jesus Christ, a God who would humble himself, bring himself down to earth to suffer for us in the most excruciating death possible because he loved us, and that's what we're putting our hope in. I am CJ Oddo, and I am choosing to follow Jesus Christ, and I think that we're all going to make it.